Recording in progress.
The time is 6:01. This is a special closed session for the City of Emeryville. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce,
Here.
Councilmember Solomon,
Here.
Councilmember Welch,
Here.
Vice Mayor Carr is absent, and Mayor Mora.
Here. Now is the time for ex parte communications. Members, are there any ex parte communications to report? Seeing and hearing none. Now is the time for public comment. Seeing no members of the public, we will move to section 5, and we'll be taking item 5.1 and 5.2 in closed session. The time is 6:01.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
The time is 6:45. We are reporting from closed session. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Moore. There is no reportable action taken in closed session today.
The time is 6:45. This meeting is adjourned. The time is 6:45. This is a special study session for the City of Emeryville. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Here.
Councilmember Solomon?
Here.
Councilmember Welch? Here. Vice Mayor Carr?
Present.
And Mayor Mora.
Here. Members, any ex parte communications? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to public comment. Seeing no members of the public, we will move to item 6.1, the study session on the city budget.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Brian Mora from Regional Government Services, financial consultant to the city. And tonight we're here to talk to you about the 2025-27 proposed budget for all funds in the city. Next slide. To give you just a brief background on the process, the city manager works with the finance department and the city department head team to develop a biennial budget every 2 years. This process has been underway since December to develop this upcoming budget. At your last council meeting on May 6th, the council reviewed the 5-year general fund financial model used to develop the budget, and the council's comments and guidance from that meeting are included in the budget document and in tonight's presentation. One of the new features this year in the budget is the creation of a city strategic plan. This was done by the council, the department head team, and the city manager in March, reviewing the city's goals, aspirations, and projects. And again, the proposed budget reflects the results of that process as well. Next slide. Okay, we'll go on to the following slide. And this is an overview of the citywide revenues expenses for all funds. In the 2-year budget, in the first year, the revenues are projected at $116.5 million and expenditures at $143.5 million. In the second year of the 2-year budget, revenues come in at $109.2 million and expenditures at $144.4 million. It's worth noting when you look at these citywide numbers, they reflect also the capital improvement budget. So when you do have major capital improvements, in some instances, you're going to be spending more revenues than you receive in a given year across all the funds. Next slide. In terms of citywide staffing, the proposed budget funds 174.61 full-time equivalent positions in both years. This includes 140 FTEs in the general fund, 34.61 FTEs in special revenue and enterprise funds, and 2 positions in public works and community development that are funded out of the quarter-cent Measure F sales tax. In terms of staffing changes from the prior budget, this budget has 2 fewer positions, namely eliminating the Deputy Community Development Director position and the Senior Building Official position. Next slide. So now we move on to a discussion of the 25-27 General Fund budget. Revenues in the first year are projected at $46 million and expenditures at $55.7 million. This is resulting in a deficit of $9.7 million. This is an increase over the current fiscal year deficit of $8.8 million prior to adjustments. And then in the second year, we're showing revenues at $47.6 million and expenditures at $57.5 million for a deficit of $9.9 million. Next slide. This is a pie chart showing the revenues in the general fund. And let's go to the next slide. One of the things that's interesting in this particular section of the budget and worth noting, and we've talked about this a bit before, is the shift in how the general fund has been funded over the last several years. And we've talked about the fact that in particular your development fees and your fees and charges vary. So you'll notice in the first column under 2022-23, you had $12.7 million in fees and charge revenue. And this year you're at $4.8 million, and you'll see that over the balance of the budget projections, it drops all the way down to about $3.3 million. So we're in a very different place than the city was in 2020, 22, 23. And again, this shows the sort of roller coaster or up and down trending of your development fees. What's interesting in the coming 2 years, in 25-6 and 26-7, I would say that the composition of your general fund is actually much more like other cities in general, because now instead of your leading revenue being development fees, they're actually property taxes. And your second largest revenue is business license taxes and card room fees, and the third largest is sales tax, and the fourth is hotel tax, which again, if you looked at other communities, that's a little more typical than how Emeryville has been funded in the past. Next slide. And this is a look at expenditures. This is similar to prior years, and again, also similar to other communities where the bulk of your general fund expenditures are in public safety, namely police and fire, with the balance showing up in the other departments, as you can see. Next slide. So in terms of the general fund multi-year projections, we talked a little bit about this at your last meeting. The 5-year projection shows a deficit of anywhere from 9.7 million in the first year to 14.6 million over the 5-year period. However, it's worth noting that for purposes of tonight's discussion and the budget adoption at your following meeting, we're really focusing only on the first 2 years, although obviously it's wise to keep an eye on what's happening after that period. The key factors here are, for the most part, that your fees and sales tax revenues are projected at a flat rate. The one thing I would note is that the city did experience some growth at the Christmas quarter. The fourth quarter sales tax was up about 6% on an adjusted basis. We're expecting within the next week or two to get the first quarter sales tax results from the state. We're very curious to see if that is also either flat or growing. Prior to the Christmas quarter, Emeryville, and for that matter, most of the cities in Alameda County actually experienced negative sales tax results for several quarters. So this is a positive development. Other factors in the budget in terms of increased costs are things like the unanticipated Social Security expenses, which started last year, the third year of your 5% salary and benefit increases, which was above the original projection, and increased costs overall. And then we note in terms of potential changes in the budget, in terms of what might actually happen versus what's in the document, the deficit could go down if revenues come in ahead of projections, and if you have any one-time bumps in revenue, as you had this year with the Sutter revenue. On the other hand, the deficit could worsen if things like the impact of the tariffs and the downturn in the economy, both locally and nationally, continue, if the decline in consumer confidence continues, and if the stock market downturn results in PERS rate increases. The PERS rate areas, when we're watching, the initial tariffs resulted in a loss to the CalPERS fund of about $25 billion. However, since that time, and since the tariffs have been suspended temporarily, CalPERS's returns are now increasing. So we're kind of waiting to see what's going to shake out by June 30th. So that one's kind of a question mark, I guess we would say. Next slide. And again, to recap, the general fund challenges and sort of what we're recommending is, in the first year, the $9.7 million, that will be offset by the money in the general fund unassigned balance, primarily due to both the adjustments the council made this March and the unanticipated payments from Sutter. And then in the second year, it will be offset again by the general fund balance, and then $4 million from the economic uncertainty reserve. However, in years 3 through 5, which again we're not discussing at this point, but something to keep an eye on, if nothing else changes, the city will need to explore either revenue measures and/or budget cuts to offset those as the deficit continues to increase. Next slide. And then this is the 5-year forecast we talked about at the last meeting. Next slide. And this is also from last time, kind of highlighting for you the actions that the council took both on March 4th to address the current year deficit and also the impacts of the Sutter revenue. Next slide. Last time around, the council talked a bit about the opportunity for revenue measures, and again, we're continuing to develop this information, and we'll have it for you in the fall. Next slide. Since you met, we did meet with the Budget Advisory Committee, and they had a number of recommendations for the council related to the 5-year model, and these focused again mostly on in the revenue arena. The 5 things that they, or 6 things they talked about were: 1, recommending that the city pursue an annual payment in lieu of taxes, so-called pilot agreement with Sutter Health. They felt it was more advisable to take an annual revenue amount rather than a lump sum, something I know that council members talked about at your last meeting. Second, they felt that in terms of looking at revenue measures, they would prioritize the business license tax and the choice of a parcel tax or community facilities district when studying revenue options. The committee noted that if, in fact, those 2 items were prioritized by the council and put before the voters and adopted, that those 2 measures alone would offset most of your projected deficit over the 5-year period. They also felt that the consideration of an increase in the hotel tax, the so-called transient occupancy tax, is another revenue area to explore at an early stage. The third item was they felt that the opportunity for a 1/4-cent local sales tax and an increase in the utility tax were not as desirable in terms of revenue options, and they would consider them as sort of lower priority as far as their recommendations. They did want to make sure that any study of the business license tax included an analysis of how businesses would be affected by those changes, and also they wanted to see data on the tax amounts being charged by your nearby cities for the various revenue options, and finally wanted to see how these increases would affect both residents and businesses. And I'd say all 3 of those last points will obviously be part of any revenue analysis that we do. Next slide. So in terms of recommendations and next steps for tonight, first, we're recommending that the council review, discuss, and provide direction to the proposed 25-27 budget document that you have before you tonight. And second, we will present a final version of the budget, taking into account your direction from tonight and any comments we get from the Budget Advisory Committee or the Budget and Governance Committee in the final document, which will be before you at the following meeting. And then moving on to next steps, just to, next slide, to provide kind of a calendar of events. Later this week, we will be meeting with the Budget Advisory Committee, going through a similar presentation that you're seeing tonight on the budget. And then on the 27th, the same thing for Budget and Governance. And then June 3rd would be the final adoption of the budget. Public Works plans to bring the capital improvement budget to you in September in a more detailed fashion than you have it tonight in this document. And then finally, we would propose that there be a council study session on revenue options in the fall, sometime in the September or October timeframe. And by then, we should have both the detailed analysis of the parcel tax and facility district options and the business license tax options. We would also anticipate bringing those to the Budget and Governance Committee prior to that council meeting so that those could be vetted a bit prior to discussion. Next slide. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or entertain any discussion or direction that you may have on the proposed budget.
Thank you, Brian. Members, any questions? Vice Mayor.
Actually, Councilmember Pryforce
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Ryan, can we
Yes.
go back to the last slide on the calendar of events,
Sure.
please? Okay, so I see the adoption of final budget on June 3, 2025,
Correct.
but I see the capital improvement program, that discussion to be happening after,
Right.
as well as the review of, I understand about the review of revenue options, but I'm just concerned this is coming after, so we are approving a budget without definitive data again.
Well, I think in the case of the capital improvement budget, what has happened, as I understand from Public Works Department, is one of their key staff members left the city as they were in the process of preparing that document. And so they've asked for additional time to prepare a standalone, separate capital improvement document. You do have in this document, this budget, their estimate currently of projects. So I'm anticipating that most of what you'll hear in September is perhaps a little more forward-looking than what's in the first 2 years. But again, that's the reasoning for not bring it to you. Originally, we were planning to bring it all to you at the same time, but due to the staffing issue, it was moved out.
All right, thanks for addressing that. Yes, I think I understood it all to happen before the adoption of the final budget. But I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay.
Member Pryforce.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, as always, giving us the adult in the room conversation. The vacancy tax, I keep bringing it up because it was a conversation that we were having, I think, earlier, but it's looking like it keeps fading because it's not in the recommended list. I believe that was something that came across through the budget advisory committee, or was it like advised because it wasn't?
It was presented to Budget Advisory and Budget and Governance, and neither one of them moved it forward back to the council. I think the reasoning, as I recall, was that the proceeds from that type of a tax revenue usually are earmarked for a specific purpose, like either economic development or housing. Doesn't have to be, but that's usually the case. I think that was one consideration. The other consideration was that I think both committees observed that that sort of tax, because it's relatively new, it's not available in many cities, is often hard to explain to the voters and hard to pass. And I think that combination of factors, that you wouldn't normally apply it to a general fund deficit, and that it didn't seem to sort of be as on point as the other 4 or 5 categories, was the reason they did not recommend moving it back to the councils. That's why it didn't come back. At the end of the day, it's obviously up to the council, either at this meeting or in the fall, as to whether you want us to explore that tax. At this point, because neither committee recommended it, we kind of put it on pause. And the other factor there is we believe that because it is kind of a novel revenue, the city would have to spend some money to study it and come up with a good revenue estimate, maybe something over 40 or 50 grand. But because there wasn't committee support, we thought that one probably falls off the table. But again, subject to direction from you. The council may feel otherwise.
Other questions? Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Let's now take public comment. Are there members of the public? Seeing no members of the public, let's bring this back to council for further discussion. And are we looking for any direction or recommendations? LaTanya, can you clarify on this? I don't think we are. This is informational.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we're not looking for any direction this time.
Member Pryforce.
I just want to suggest that we don't close the door entirely on the vacancy tax, even though it may take some work and manifest into making putting it forward to the public. That in the conversations that I've had, and most recently learning that some units and some storefronts can remain vacant, and for whatever reason, that the empty homes tax that the city of Berkeley that they were able to pass successfully is expected to generate up to $5.9 million annually for them. And so I believe that the vacancy tax is something that would move. I think it would move the needle when it comes to our budget. As relates to anything related to utilities, being someone who has been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and understanding the live work environments that many of our residents operate in, I am not a fan of anything related to increasing utilities or video or anything that could add it can increase costs for people who are living and working in Emeryville. And so I just want to express again that I am not I'm not a fan of anything as it relates to utilities being increased. So yeah, that's it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I think we can move on from this item. There's nothing else on this agenda. The time is 7:05. This meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Are we recording?
Recording in progress.
The time is 7:16. This is a regular meeting of the City of Emeryville as successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Here.
Councilmember Solomon?
Here.
Councilmember Welch? Here. Vice Mayor Carr?
Present.
And Mayor Mora.
Here. Members, do we have a motion to approve the final agenda?
I move approval of the final agenda.
Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Councilmember Solomon?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch? Vice Mayor Carr?
Aye.
And Mayor Mora.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Members, do you have any ex parte communications to report? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to public comment. Are there any members of the public here to comment on the consent agenda or items not on the agenda? Seeing no members of the public, we can move to the consent calendar. Members, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Councilmember Solomon?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch? Vice Mayor Carr?
Aye.
And Mayor Mora.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We have no action items. The time is 7:17. This meeting is adjourned. The time is 7:17. This is a regular meeting for the City Council in the City of Emeryville. Madam Clerk, please note that all members are still seated from the previous meeting. I do have one modification to the final agenda to reorder the agenda to take item 12.1, the action item, before 11.1, the public hearing. So with that modification, do we have a motion to approve the final agenda?
I move approval of the final agenda as modified.
Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Councilmember Solomon?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carr?
Aye.
And Mayor Mora.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 4.1 is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Emeryville recognizing May 2025 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas May is recognized across the United States as Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Month, a time to honor the contributions and cultural heritage of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders in the United States. And Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have enriched the cultural fabric of our nation with their diverse histories, traditions, and values while making significant contributions in all areas of American society, including business, government, education, arts, sciences, and community leadership. The history of the AAPI community in the United States dates back to the early 19th century with the arrival of the first Asian immigrants, and since then, AAPI communities have been an integral part of the country's growth, contributing to the advancement of social, cultural, economic, and political life. The City of Emeryville, with its rich cultural diversity, is home to many AAPI individuals and families who continue to contribute to the vibrancy and success of our city, and we celebrate their cultural traditions and contributions to our community. We recognize the challenges and struggles faced by the AAPI community, including the need to continue advancing social justice, equity, and inclusion for all people, and honor their resilience and strength in overcoming adversity throughout history. This month provides an opportunity to reflect on the shared history and celebrate the ongoing contributions of AAPI individuals in Emeryville, the Greater Bay Area, and beyond, while also reaffirming our commitment to an inclusive and welcoming city for all residents, regardless of race, ethnicity, or background. And now, therefore, it be that the City Council of the City of Emeryville hereby declares the month of May 2025 as Asian American Heritage Month in Emeryville and calls upon all residents to celebrate and learn more about the rich history, culture, and contributions of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders in the United States. And be it further resolved that the City Council encourages all residents of Emeryville to participate in community events and activities that highlight the AAPI community's heritage, fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation of the diverse cultures that make up our city. Proclaimed by the mayor of the City Council of the City of Emeryville at a regular meeting held Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. If members would like to make any comments, feel free to chime up.
Sure, I can.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I am grateful that our city recognizes these Heritage Months, which is very, very nice because I think it celebrates the inclusivity and the welcoming of all residents, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. So I'm really grateful. We do not only this one, we'll be having Juneteenth and hopefully Pride and other celebrations of the diversity and inclusion in our city. With regard to this particular one, I am very happy we are going to have Benihana and Tokyo Central as another Asian American business in our community. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Member Pryforce.
I just want to recognize this month, and of course every month, the historic position that that Vice Mayor Carr has on this council, and that since joining this council, her perspective, which she brings, that is of course culturally informed, makes Emeryville a greater place when we add cultures and perspectives that are traditionally or maybe even be historically, even marginally unrepresented. And so I just want to recognize this month the Vice Mayor Carr's historic presence on this council.
Thank you, Council Member.
Any other comments? Member Welch.
I just want to echo those sentiments as a woman of color. I'm having the honor to serve alongside you, Vice Mayor, is both a privilege and an honor. And I'm glad as women who come from communities that have been historically locked out of public service, just you and I being here together, being able to serve, I think is such a monumental moment. And us having a, not outside of council, having a, what I would consider a friendship and a dedication to our communities is something that I not just only enjoy, but cherish. And so thank you for your continued service to our community.
Thank you, Council Member.
And I'll just add one note from my perspective. I feel extremely privileged and proud to be part of this city and part of the diversity and the just the welcoming that we do for people of all backgrounds. And I think we do that with more than just words. Looking at our history on housing and making the city affordable for people to live in matters a great deal to me. And I think this is one of the sources of our strength. We do put our actions where our mouth is. Okay, next we have announcement of commission and committee vacancies.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, we had the annual recruitment close yesterday at 5 p.m. Council will be making appointments for all of those vacant, excuse me, annual positions at the June 17th meeting. We had a pretty good turnout of applicants, and it was nice to see how many people applied. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have council member special announcements and reports on meeting attendance.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I attended a 5-day conference last week in the land of 10,000 lakes, our state of Minnesota. This is the largest gathering every year of nonprofits and civic leaders. to connect children and nature. I was invited by our own, very own Emory Unified School Board member, Susan Donaldson, who has been working passionately with National League of Cities and Children and Nature Network to make our city of Emeryville more nature-friendly and accessible to children between the ages of 0 and 5. We have some council members here who have children between the ages of 0 and 5. So we were actually honored to have inspiring remarks delivered by the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan. We made site visits and attended many conferences in Rice Park and open nature around wellness, children, nature, and climate adaptation. So I have to say this was a very unique conference. We had less screen time and more nature time, and there were so many people attending. So it was very unique conference. We should have more of those. I was thinking of maybe having a council meeting in the park. But continuing on, many cities included San Francisco shared their ideas and policies, some of which I hope we can use in our city. Emory board member Susan and I will share more information with staff and our appropriate committees to maybe enforce some of these ideas or implement some of these ideas in our cities.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next, we have the city manager's report.
There's nothing to report this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Members, next we have ex parte communications. Do you have any ex parte communications to report? Seeing and hearing none, now is the time for public comment for items on the consent agenda or items not on the agenda. Seeing no members of the public, we now have the consent calendar. Members, do we have a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll move approval of the consent.
Second.
Madam Clerk, the roll.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Councilmember Solomon?
Aye.
Councilmember Welch? Vice Mayor Carr?
Aye.
And Mayor Mora?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have our action item. This is the proposed 2025-2026 state and federal legislative agenda. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and council members. Nicolo DeLuca from Townsend Public Affairs. First, thank you for moving the item up. Really appreciate it because I do have to get back to Sacramento. Before you this evening is a draft legislative platform for 25 and 26, which I like to say serves as our playbook as to what items, what policy topics we want to focus on for the upcoming year. Once this is adopted, then I will work with city staff to bring back specific state legislative bills for you all to take a position on with our recommendations. But first, I want to say, I recognize almost all of your faces, of course. It's great seeing everyone. It was great to meet the new council member. Some of you might be wondering, like, yeah, who are you? You know, you get our awesome weekly updates. I do want, and I kind of got sentimental talking to the city manager about this before. We've worked with the city since 2008, and it's been a great time. We've had seven city-sponsored bills signed into law, which is pretty impressive. Range from affordable housing to some small business support to other items. We've also worked with the city to secure over $11 million. I was trying to do the math on your population, but I wasn't able to do it in time. But it's really, we're very proud of the partnership we've done to get you all some much needed funding. So that's kind of just some overall background on who we are. We work with you all in Sacramento and in DC, and we help on some funding efforts. So just kind of wanted to provide some context. So today, the legislative platform is here for your feedback. And once we get your feedback and gets adopted, then we focus on what we want to work on. Items will come, items will go, because that's kind of the nature of where things stand right now. And I do just want to highlight we broke them into policy topics to make it easier to follow. And this is based off of past years' ledge platforms. So the policy topics are homelessness and behavioral health, housing and greater access, economic development, transportation and infrastructure, public safety, climate resiliency, and then miscellaneous, which is kind of a catch-all on things like Brown Act and things of that nature. And then you'll see under each heading, we have policy priorities, and then we have funding priorities. And then we also, towards the very end, one-time state and federal funding priorities for what we like to call member requests. We've worked closely with your staff, and we are very grateful to work in partnership with the new Congresswoman on resubmitting a funding request for 40th Street. And unfortunately, the way that the state budget's looking like this year, there's not really an opportunity for state funding, a direct allocation. In years past, we've been successful working with you all, with then Assemblywoman Wicks and then Assemblywoman Bonta on some direct allocations to the city. And then we're happy to come back and give live real-time updates whenever you all see fit. I would recommend probably August because we're getting closer to the end of session. And then, of course, year-end wrap-ups, and then working on what we want to focus on in 26. So again, would love your feedback and love your comments. This is what I like to call our playbook for the upcoming year. And once this is adopted, then I'll work with the city team to come back and highlight maybe 10, 15 bills that we feel are relevant for the city to weigh in on, but also a good opportunity for you all to highlight what your priorities are and what you care about. Something that I like to say when we do support letters or any comment letters, yes, it's to that author's office and that committee staff, but it's also a great way to celebrate and advertise all the good work the city of Emeryville is doing. It's a great way to really highlight some of your forward-thinking policies and some of the projects that you're really proud of. So that is what is before you today. Happy to take any comments, any feedback, and then come back, work with city staff on a bunch of bills. One other item is, of course, you all know we're in the May revise, so we're kind of beginning the budget negotiations. Happy to talk about any of those matters. And we're also on Friday is the Appropriations Committee hearing for both houses. So we call it First House. So the Appropriations Committee is a very powerful committee, the Assembly Appropriations Committee, the Senate Appropriations Committee, where they look at any bills of a fiscal impact, and the committee decides if the bills stay in committee, which means they don't move anymore, or are amended, or move forward to the floor, and then they continue that process. So I will stop speaking. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I do want to make it clear, you all have been great to work with and really appreciate all of your support and our great partnership. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicolo. I just have one clarifying question I want to lay out there. So I know what we're talking about is kind of a conceptual framework for what the city or this council wants to support. And as far as this, I think we're all aware of some of the very specific bills that are making their way through the state legislature and nationally. When did you say that would be a good time for us to weigh in on the specific bills? So when will you come back to us?
I would love to come back to you all very soon, and I'll work with the clerk and the team as to when. We're going to know more on Friday as to what's going forward, but more importantly, what's been amended. So hypothetically, I don't want to recommend a bill right now that you all take a position on, because Friday it could change dramatically, and then I don't want you all to then retract that. So I'd like to get through this week. I already have a couple bills in mind, and then I'll work with the clerk and the city manager as to when to get it to you all. But I'm thinking pretty soon. I'd love a meeting in June so we could start weighing in on those bills.
That's what I'm getting at, because if we do take the time and trouble to discuss and stay the position, we definitely want it to be as impactful as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's open it up to questions. Members? I think we were all provided the framework, which touches on, I think, some of the big topics that we care about: housing, economic development, climate resiliency, public safety, and transportation and infrastructure. I just want to make sure there's no questions, because I know we don't have the slide up. All right, let's take it to public comment. Seeing no members of the public, we can now discuss.
My microphone's bad. No, you're good. Go ahead.
Member Solomon, go ahead.
Here on my microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Nicolo, for the overview and helpful explanation of what your role is in the process here. So I just have a couple of, I would say, within this framework, sub-bullets that I want to either emphasize or suggest we add if the council is amenable. So I'll just kind of run through those. So the first is, and this could either be in housing or climate resiliency. I know insurance, housing insurance has been a major topic of discussion in the state, both the cost and the availability. So I think that's something I would be interested in learning more about what bills are being discussed. The second, and I think this is probably included in transportation infrastructure and funding for riding transit. I know SB 63 is probably fits into that category of bills that could be amended in ways that will dramatically change whether or not we want to support them, but would be very keen on learning more about that. And then another thing that I don't know exactly where it fits in here, but air pollution is something that I care a lot about, especially since I-80 runs right through our town. Even relatively small changes to numbers of electric vehicles, number of electric trucks, even electric trains has a big impact on children and health outcomes for our residents. So would be interested in both policies and funding around that, as well as building decarbonization and air pollution inside buildings, whether that's policies around gas stoves or water heaters, et cetera, or that is funding for those as well. And then my final item kind of touches on similar topic, but coming at it from a funding perspective. I know there's discussion around how do we pay for all of these great things that we want to do, so both in the budget, but there's also been discussion around a polluter pay type model. I think it's SB 684 that I think could be, in a time when we have a very limited state budget, could be an option that I would be interested in learning more about and understanding the fate of that bill. Thank you.
Nicola, based on the items that Member Solomon brought up, are there any that you see as already included within our agenda, or do you see a need for modification?
Honorable Mayor, really appreciate that. I will definitely highlight insurance under housing and greater access. I will, under transportation and infrastructure, make it a little bit more clear about not just transportation, but transit agencies and SB 63. And I'm happy to talk about that one too. I'm feeling air pollution and building decarb could probably go under climate resiliency. And then thank you for the gentle reminder, cap and trade has gotten really hot all of a sudden. So I probably might put that under cap and trade, because I really would recommend the city weigh in with some type of comment letter, which we'll put together. So Honorable Mayor, that would be my recommendations.
So just to be clear, does that mean that we would be modifying the document? Okay. Maybe we could have a show of hands from the council, whether we have support for updating the priorities to include the insurance cost and availability, the air pollution topic, and the, what was the other one? The polluter?
I think polluter pays, I would include cap and trade under sort of alternative methods of funding climate priorities.
Okay, I see majority support for making those updates. Members, any other updates? Member Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nicola, thank you for this memo. I appreciate all the work. It's very comprehensive, which is one of the benefits of working with Townsend for so long. They understand Emeryville's values and focus, and this is very much a reflection on our values, public safety that's really focused around implementing technology and not additional criminalization, especially of vulnerable communities. And we know that the governor is just, moving a little bit more moderate, we'll just say that, on some items around homelessness and public safety, and really focusing on public transit and economic development, tourism all of those things that we are very interested in, and I'm very supportive and appreciate Member Solomon bringing up the insurance issue that we have actually heard from our residents is a very big concern, and very much in support of that. I wanted to note around the economic mobility piece, which typically includes workforce development, but if there was any legislation around guaranteed basic income, if the council was agreeable, if that was something that folks would be interested in supporting as well. I know that has been very much a local push, and they've had, I was a part of Mayors for Guaranteed Income, and now that they've expanded and they're now doing that for state legislators as well. So that might not necessarily happen this cycle, but I wanted to flag that because I feel like that is something that now that it's been many pilot programs have happened within partnerships between local governments and nonprofits, they are now focusing on the statewide and federal level space, and wanted to see if the council was interested in supporting or being interested in hearing legislation that's focused on guaranteed basic income as well.
Just to clarify, is this to study basic income or something that disperses to the broader population?
Not specifically. There's been a lot of movement on the local level, but now advocates are focusing on statewide efforts to potentially either have pilot programs or have legislation around guaranteed basic income. I'm not for sure what that might look like at the moment, but I think as far as our values as a city would be in alignment of where guaranteed basic income pilot programs and legislation focuses as far as investing in people, trusting households and individuals with lower income with their own agency around what to do with the money, and understanding that poverty is a policy issue, not a personal failing.
Nicola, do you see that falling under any of our existing ones, or if it had to be updated, where we would put it?
Honorable Mayor, I would put that under economic development. And what I could do is that last point, point 5, support legislative and other efforts for programs that create pathways out of poverty, build that out a little bit more and highlight guaranteed income. As the councilwoman mentioned, it had been a hot topic when there was some of the COVID funding coming. And the state did do a guaranteed income pilot program, and the folks have kind of been waiting now, like not in a bad way, but what's the next shoe to drop or what's going to happen next? So we can definitely clarify that. And then just one other point, what I will do is, since this is a draft, once we're done, I could submit 2 copies, a clean copy and then a track changes copy, so you all can see where we made the additions.
That sounds good. Members, are there support for, maybe with a show of hands, support for exploring universal income as a, I guess as an alternative to kind of a welfare program? Is that accurate?
Well, not necessarily, sorry, Mr. Mayor, not necessarily an alternative, but in addition to the kind of standard programs that are funded and available when we think about pathways for individuals to get out of poverty. Because it can include things like workforce development, it does include social safety net programs, but universal basic income programs or pilot programs have been quickly becoming a part of anti-poverty measures for many cities.
Got it. So this is universal income as augmenting social safety net. Members, do we have a majority support for that update? Other comments or requests? Member Pryforce.
As first, I want to start by my appreciation for Townsend for preparing this list of legislative strategies and general priorities. Typically, my role on this council is to voice community concerns that may be historically overlooked by this council. And so I take my role very seriously. And so I want to stress that with sometimes the general priorities that as bills roll out, that they may not necessarily address some of the wills and needs of Emeryville residents. And so, for example, listed under the priorities was reasonable reform to CEQA. And I don't know how many coffee shop conversations I've had with residents that should be prioritized as an issue. I think that it tends to be a little bit more politically motivated, especially if it unintentionally accelerates gentrification, displacement, or environmental harm. However, AB 1157 by Assemblymember Calra, which was widely supported by tenant organizations that sought to lower California's rent cap significantly. Even though that was pulled, it may come back in 2026. And so I'm thinking along that line as relates to housing and greater access. And then there's measures like Alex Lee's AB 2584, which is aimed at preventing large institutional investors from further converting single-family homes into rentals, or SB 295, which is the California Preventing Algorithmic Collusion Act, which is designed to combat rent gouging by corporate landlords. These are the kind of like detailed legislative efforts that I believe our community would want me to express an interest in our city supporting. So I want to also include my concern about, or my confusion around lowering lowering taxes for the cannabis industry, which has proven to be a valuable revenue source for Emeryville. And so I'm a little confused about why our advocacy is focused on that as a priority, especially when our focus could be directed towards Senator Wahhab's SB 332, which is aimed at capping utility rate hikes. I believe that a member of our Budget and Governance Committee has expressed that has been a concern, sort of PG&E gone wild, and how that has affected our residents, specifically our seniors. It's been so capping that would be a tangible relief to Emeryville residents and businesses. But of course, I look forward to June 6th or any date that where you can come back and we can do a little bit more deep dive. And so I just appreciate your work and thank you for looking out for the small guy.
Absolutely, and if I may, through the mayor, so council member, just to be clear, you're expressing some type of favorability towards the Alex Lee bill on kind of tenant protections and what have you, and then the rent gouging bill and things of that nature, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Perhaps since this is kind of a framework, if we're talking about updating the framework, we can maybe, I know there's a lot of specific bills, but I think one thing that Member Bryforce is getting at is the reducing the cost of housing, whether it's rent, right? And I know a lot of bills, they claim to do something and they might not actually do it. So we won't know till we see specific bills. So what I would propose is bills that really try to bring us stuff that's going to move the needle on the cost of housing and lower rents for the people living in the city. So members, do we have support to make that more explicit within the legislative framework. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Nicolo, thank you again for coming. I also would like to know more about SB 332 under, yeah, and whether or not it is something that we could express support for. And I think it would fall under one of your categories here, so that would be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Madam Vice Mayor, something that I'm thinking would be when I come back, whether it's the 6th or the following council meeting, probably have 3 buckets. One would definitely be support. One would be considering opposition, though sometimes opposition, and I'm probably opposed unless amended. And then another one of watching or monitoring. The watching sometimes sounds so passive, but it's to work on it without a formal position. And if it goes one way or another, then we either move to support or oppose. So thank you, because that triggered a thought, so thank you.
Member Pryforce.
What would also be helpful for our next meeting is by sharing the sort of, not just the sponsors, but who is supporting and also who's in opposition.
Who's in opposition?
Yeah, because I want to make sure that I'm not ever on the side of those who are looking to do harm and have a reputation of doing harm to the folks in Emeryville.
Absolutely. You know, kind of funny, quick story. A former city manager, many city managers ago, we talk about bills, and then she would always ask where one different association was. If I would say support, she's like, "Cool, let's oppose." So.
Members, any other comments for modifying the policy framework? I just had one. I wasn't sure if it was explicit under the climate. We talk about supporting electrification of buildings, construction. It kind of also touches things like gas stoves. I think one of the main impediments to electrification is simply the cost of electricity. We pay more under PG&E than virtually anywhere else in the country. And I think those very high electricity cost rates are actually slowing down the adoption of more sustainable green technologies, EVs. So I think something that moves the needle on helping bring down the price of electricity, whether that is transmission line permitting or some sort of fostering competition among generation or distribution. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that we should not be paying the highest rate in the country. So members, with a show of hands, is there support for adding a explicit line item about the affordability of electricity? Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, is your question, because I believe that SB 332 that Vice Mayor Carr and I mentioned, but are you specifically focused, because I believe that the governor mentioned either today or yesterday that there were that California is not expanding sort of our grid, and so are you more focused more on sort of infrastructure in terms of electricity, or like actual like what we're paying?
Whatever drops the cost for us.
Gotcha.
I don't care how we do it. Let's focus on focusing on the outcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolo. We are looking forward to the specific bills, recommendations, the watch list.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I got my homework. I'm going to go back to Sacramento, get cracking on this. I'll work with the city clerk and the city manager on the next most expedient time to come back with a list of bills. And thank you all very much. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you.
of the
Safe
council
travels.
meeting. Thank you.
Go Dragons.
Next, we have item 11.1. This is the annual city vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. Hi, Lily Bell.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. So tonight I'm here to present the annual report of the city vacancies and our recruitment and retention efforts. Next slide. So on September 22nd, 2024, Governor Newsom approved Assembly Bill 2561 that requires public agencies to present annual reports on the status of vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts during a public hearing. It further states that the public hearing is to be done before adoption of the budget and that bargaining units are allowed to make presentations should they choose to do so. Next slide. So this slide shows the employee groups included in the report. We have the 4 bargaining groups of SEIU, CAMP, POA, and PMA, as well as the unrepresented regular full-time benefited positions. So note that unrepresented part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees are not included in this report. Next slide. So we have the number of hires and terminations last year. As you can see, the city hired 9 regular FTEs and had 11 regular FTEs separate, bringing our overall turnover rate to 8.9% during calendar year 2024. We started with 19 vacancies at the beginning of the calendar year and ended with 21. Next slide. So here is a chart of the budgeted positions and the vacancies by bargaining group. You see the 21 vacancies here broken out. Vacancy rates for the bargaining groups vary and range from 5.4% to 16.7%, with the exception of EPMA, which is made up of 3 positions and 2 classifications, which will be addressed in a later slide. Next. So now we're going to look at the vacancies and recruitments by employee group. Next. SEIU has a 16.7% vacancy rate. And here I list the 10 positions for the 11 vacancies. Next slide. This next slide shows the status of those 11 vacancies. As you can see, we recently filled 2 of them, police services technician and teacher assistant, both starting in June. We currently have open and ongoing recruitments, the building inspector or senior building inspector, and the police communications dispatcher, and then the other 6 positions are pending recruitments. Next slide. So CAMP has also a 16.7% vacancy rate and 4 vacancies. Next slide. There are 2 current recruitments right now, one for management analyst in community development and one for public works. And then the other 2 are pending recruitments. Next. So POA has only 5.4% vacancy rates, only 2 vacancies, both in police officers. The recruitment is current and always ongoing. Next. So PMA, as previously discussed in an earlier slide, was established in 2023 to remove the sworn positions of captain and lieutenant out of camp. PMA has 2 vacancies, captain who resigned last October and lieutenant who retired in December. Next slide. The unrepresented group has a 14.7% vacancy rate with 2 vacancies. I am very happy to report that we recently filled the finance director, who will be starting June 2nd, which will bring our vacancy rate down to 7.3%. And then we plan to open the HR analyst position next fiscal year. This vacancy is currently being filled by a retired annuitant. So next, we're going to discuss recruitment and retention efforts citywide. Next, for calendar year, this calendar year, which started January 1 through mid-May, the city hired 5 FTEs and had 5 FTEs separate. So we're still at 21 vacant positions, 14.6% vacancy rate. The HR department continues to meet regularly with its department heads, all of the hiring managers to partner and work with them prioritizing upcoming recruitments and ensuring that we meet these staffing needs for each department. We have seen increasing, next slide, sorry. We have seen increasing numbers of applicants for vacant positions. As you can see, from 58 applications for Public Works Operations and Facilities Manager, which we recently filled, all the way to over 300 applications for HR assistant. So this is in part due to the increased activity of HR on LinkedIn and social media, as well as targeted postings and advertisements based on positions. Additionally, the city has recently seen improvement in the acceptances of our offers. And then future, we will continue to open the recruitments for vacant positions. Next slide. So the city is quite competitive with its compensation and benefits. As your council knows, we successfully negotiated contracts with its 4 bargaining units, which included 3.5% COLAs plus 1.5% recruitment and retention increases over 3 years, totaling 15% wage increases. In addition to that, we did bring all positions in SEIU and CAMP to the median following a salary survey with our comparator agencies. Additionally, the city offers competitive benefits as listed here. These significant changes, I believe, have greatly improved the ability to attract and retain employees as seen by the increased number of applicants and acceptances. With that, I'm here for questions. Next slide. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Lilybell. Members, any questions? Let's take public comment. Seeing no members of the public, I'll bring this back for discussion. Members, any discussion or further comments? And I believe this is an informational item.
Mayor, this is a public hearing, so if you could just open the public hearing, call for speakers again, and then close it. Please.
Yes.
Thank you.
The time is 8:03. The public hearing is now open. Seeing no members of the public, the time is 8:03. The public hearing is now closed. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, thank you, Lilybell. Oh, Member Pryforce, go ahead.
I just want to apologize again for reposting a job post that it was an absolute nightmare for everyone. But I just wanted to say thank you for using mediums like LinkedIn and others in ways that have added to recruitment. So just say thank you.
And Lilybell, if I can just add, I do really appreciate how much you look out for the city, keeping us competitive. And we love telling people that we are a great city to work in and work for. And I think you make that true. So thank you. Okay. Next, we have department head reports.
No report this evening, thank you.
Future agenda item requests. Members, do you have any future agenda items?
I have one.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the conference, the Children in Nature conference last week in Minnesota, many cities, including San Francisco, shared resolutions in support of a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. I like what San Francisco did, and it appears to be doable in the same manner in Emeryville, with the resolution as a policy statement only. With that background, we could send it to Parks and Recreation and even Sustainability Committee if appropriate. It would help reinforce our city's commitment to parks and to becoming a family-friendly city and a and also reinforce or reaffirm one of our goals of a livable, safe, and vibrant community that prioritizes recreation parks, events, and engaged communities.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Maybe just some input from staff. What would be the most appropriate venue to consider a policy statement like that?
Thank you, Mayor Mora. I believe the Director of Community Services could chime in as well, but I think the idea would be that there would be a resolution brought back to the council supporting the Children's Bill of Rights, and then that would be referred to the Parks and Recs Committee for further follow-up along the lines of that organization's programming.
Members, is there support for a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights? The motion passes. Members, any other future agenda items? Member Pryforce.
So there's not a whole lot that I agree with Mayor Lurie of San Francisco, but one I do, and Supervisor Felder also agrees, is the idea of permit reform, and I do admit that I haven't bounced around our staff about whether or not we, for example, one of the permit reform initiatives that the mayor is doing is around public permitting tracking tool that use real-time insights for residents and merchants. I don't know if that's something that we currently use and utilize, but there are a couple of initiatives that he is proposing, and so it's not something that we could prioritize in terms of, like, agenda-wise, because maybe it's a good idea to see what they do first, and then we follow suit. But it's definitely something to take a look at, which is focused on making it easier to open and run small businesses, and even helping small businesses expand, because that has been a issue that has been raised to me by several small businesses, is how difficult, or they felt that our permitting process was a bit too political in Emeryville. And so anything that could help, I guess, make that more simplified, before we use the language of streamline, but at least make it more simplified, which I believe that's where Mayor Lurie is going.
Maybe the staff could comment on any initiatives or efforts, either in the past or ongoing, to streamline permitting.
Yeah, we're always interested in making things simpler for the business community and for making the permit process easy to administer and efficient. On the specific point around public access to the permitting system, we are already underway with that. The contract with Tyler Technologies includes a component allowing for online submittal and tracking of permits and communication with the inspectors through that tool. That's going to take us some time to roll out, admittedly, but we are already on that pathway. I can't speak too much to the other specific, without specifics about, but I am, like I said, I'm always interested in efficiency with permitting.
Yeah, I did see that news story as well. Maybe is it fair to say that the developments in San Francisco relaxing some permit requirements, that's something that you're also tracking, and if it works for them, it's something we could consider?
Yes, we are generally recognized as being faster than San Francisco in the first place, and so, but I am interested in that, yeah, and it kind of depends on the local specific barriers that those businesses are facing, but I'm happy to copy any ideas because I do want to stay one step ahead, at least, of San Francisco's permitting process.
Thank you, Chad. Member Pryforce, would you be okay connecting offline with Director Smalley regarding any specific permitting reforms as we monitor continuous improvement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members, any other future agenda items? Member Pryforce.
So there's an ongoing issue related to our testing of hazards that tenants are experiencing, and so I've shared with the staff that the idea of a program that would allow for tenants to request testing, sort of bare bones testing of some of the most hazardous issues that they face, which is lead, asbestos, and mold. And I believe that it would be sort of an expansion of what we currently do. That Chad was able to enlighten me that for buildings built prior to 1978, that we do require lead testing. And so it'll be, I believe, an addition to that, that should lead issues do come up, that for buildings after 1978, that is something that a tenant can request that the city test. And so it necessarily wouldn't be on the city to enforce, and that would be more so focused on the county. But sometimes we leave it to tenants to pursue issues privately, private litigation, and we say that we don't, sort of get involved in that. But for them to be able to test, for the city to test and that become a public record document is something that sometimes they need in being able to move forward with private litigation. And so that is something that would be a gap because we don't have a public health department. But in how we do things in terms of our city, in comparison to other cities, that kind of programming is actually there are no other cities around us that do something like that. So it is actually taking a step into an unknown, and so that's something that I want to bring before this body for us to explore is testing that residents can request that the city can make around lead, asbestos, and mold, and just be that, that's testing, get the results, and then what they do with that is what they do with it.
Can staff comment on any existing recourse that residents can do regarding these well-known hazards?
Yes, and I'll try to be brief with this. In cases of mold and lead, when the building predates 1978 and there is observed flaking paint, that paint is presumed to be lead. In mold, if it's visible, it's presumed to be an issue. And in those cases, the tenants can request an inspection from the city, and if the city observes those conditions, the city can issue a notice to abate to the landlord to fix the condition. And part of that is using the certified personnel and following the proper work channels to get that done. So that is our existing program. As regards asbestos, that would normally be dealt with through permitted demolition work, because that is the activity that makes asbestos dangerous. And that work is regulated by us through our permitting process, but in conjunction with the air district, which, as a condition of our permit, we require them to get the clearance from the air district. And so that is, in a nutshell, is what we do currently.
It's not clear to me what the gap is. Member Pryforce, could you clarify what your ask is?
So just to clarify with Chad, so at any moment, a resident in Emeryville can request for that inspection, that test to be made as it relates to those three factors, specifically when it comes to lead and mold, and that test become public record for them to be able to access.
We are not going to do a test as a part of what just to be clear.
Okay,
If the complaint comes in, the building is old enough and the paint is flaking, so that's something that's easily observed by a code enforcement officer. There's no special scientific testing required. We presume that it's lead, and we tell the owner to remedy the situation. Same with mold. That's observed, go fix it. And so they are required then to prove up to us that they have accomplished that work by hiring the certified personnel. There isn't in any of that, what I just described, any requirement for a test to be procured necessarily, just that the condition be remedied.
Thank you, Chad. Member Pryforce, does that address your concern?
No, it's still pretty confusing. I mean, oh, okay.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify from Chad. Chad, the 1978 pre-19, is that applicable to all housing in Emeryville, including multifamily?
All buildings.
All buildings. Okay. So then, thank you for the clarification, Chad. There are some recent laws that came out, and I don't know if our ordinances are up to date with that. Those laws. They specifically address substandardized housing, and those laws are related specifically to multifamily housing. That not only includes lead issues, but also pest issues. And I know that some of the older buildings have pest issues, so those laws would require the cities to update their ordinances, and I think it would be a good idea to explore what ordinances we currently have to see if we can use those laws to update our ordinances. It might require a study session, and we could even put this item to the Budget and Governance Committee to explore it further.
Since we're talking about the compliance with laws, possibly new laws that address these concerns, maybe we could send this to Budget and Governance. Would the council be amenable to that with a show of hands?
Actually,
see.
may I make a suggestion?
Yes, go ahead.
Because of the confusion, could I go back and forth with Chad, and so we can clarify it and then bring that back to the council, or are we doing something different in terms of focus a little bit more on ordinances?
If you think this is a gap that does not come from compliance with a new law, then you can bring this back as a future agenda item at a future council meeting, once you get more clarification if this is something that you'd like to pursue.
So then can we treat these as two separate issues? Because I'm really fascinated in what Vice Mayor Carr is proposing, but one may be treated as going to Budget and Governance, and the other may be treated as sort of going to Chad to get some clarification, if that makes sense.
Member Welch?
I just wanted to note that Emeryville is covered by Alameda County Healthy Homes, and there is offers free consultations for a property-based lead safety consultation that is available to property owners that they can utilize. There's financial resources that are available to help with remediation. So that is something that is available. You can, as the tenant, fill out the form to get the consultation and tell the property owner that this is available to them free of cost to come through, and then there would be financial services available to help remediate if there is lead found within the property. So I think that is the bigger concern here, is that tenants don't have there's an assumption that tenants don't have the access to help drive the forces around remediation and getting to a safe and healthy home, and that's not exactly true. Now, as a tenant, you do have limitations on whatever changes and things that you can implement within your rental property, but that is something that is available and that can be implemented by the tenant.
Does staff have a recommendation on how to best handle the concern raised by Member Pryforce?
Thank you, Mayor. Since this item has not been agendized tonight, I think if Councilmember Pryforce could continue to work with myself and Chad to discuss this, because there are some components, as Councilmember Welch mentioned, that are applicable here. There are also the county, also the state. And so it might be a matter of us getting the information out there. But if we can work with a council member and then potentially come back, that would help us.
Thank you, LaTanya. Member Pryforce, does that suit you?
Yes, and I just want to make it clear that the current mechanisms that we have in place, that we're currently dealing with an issue of tenants who felt that the mechanism that we have in place haven't been addressing that particular need, because I believe that that act is based on the good faith of the property manager to be able to provide or approve that level of consultation. And so, so this is really important in terms of tenant-landlord dispute, that the tenant is empowered to be able to have this testing done and have that public record document made available to them, rather than going through the property manager. And so that is what I'm concerned about, and that's what's been presented to me. So that's why, yeah. So in answer to your question, yes, I would be happy to work with our staff on this issue.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, so Councilmember Pryforce, thank you for making these separate items. I thought that this was also related to that ordinance, so you can have your discussion with the staff, but I just want to make sure that the item that I proposed to update the substandardized multifamily housing, update those ordinances is still going to go to the Budget and Governance Committee for consideration.
Madam Clerk, can you confirm that agenda item, which received full support, is moving to Budget and Governance, or do you need another show of hands?
No, if it received full support, that's fine. Thank you.
Members, any other future agenda items? Member Pryforce.
So I'd like to present before this body the future agenda item of the Pledge of Allegiance being discussed as returning to our proceedings, and I will demonstrate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, with a show of hands, is there support for bringing back the Pledge of Allegiance? Seeing none, the motion fails. The time is 8:23. This meeting is adjourned.